My name is Emily Carter. I'm 29 years old, and until a few months ago, I genuinely believed I'd found the man I was going to spend the rest of my life with. Looking back now, I realize love has a strange way of muffling instincts. Tiny warning signs become adorable quirks. Uneasy feelings get buried beneath hope. You convince yourself that trust means ignoring the little voice asking uncomfortable questions. That's exactly what I did. I met Ryan Mitchell, 27, at a backyard barbecue, hosted by mutual friends the previous summer. We clicked almost instantly. He was charming without trying too hard, attentive without being overbearing, and had the kind of easy smile that made every conversation feel effortless. Within weeks, we were inseparable. Things moved quickly. By the 6th month of our relationship, Ryan had moved into my apartment. My apartment, my lease. Every bill, every utility, every piece of paperwork carried only my name. At the time, I saw his eagerness as commitment. Now I recognize it as something very different. For a while, life felt almost perfect. Or maybe it simply felt convincing. Over the following months, Ryan started bringing up our future more and more often. He'd pause outside jewelry stores and casually point out engagement rings. He'd ask how many children I wanted someday. Whenever one of our friends announced an engagement, he'd study my reaction instead of congratulating them. I wasn't against marriage. I wasn't against children. I simply believed those milestones deserved time. 11 months together was meaningful, but not enough for me to promise forever. My parents' divorce had permanently shaped how I viewed commitment. I was 14 when they spent 2 brutal years tearing each other apart in court. Watching that made me promise myself I'd never rush into marriage, simply because emotions were running high. There was another reason I was cautious. My older sister had endured years of legal battles with her ex-husband over custody. Seeing someone weaponize family against the person they once claimed to love left scars on everyone who watched. So yes, when it came to life-changing commitments, I believed in certainty. Then, Thursday night happened. Ryan came home acting strangely. He kept pacing around the living room. His hands wouldn't stop fidgeting. His excitement felt forced, almost rehearsed. Finally, he looked at me. "Emily, can you sit down? I need to tell you something." His voice trembled just enough to sound authentic. I sat beside him. "What is it?" He reached behind his back with theatrical flair and revealed a pregnancy test. 2 bright pink lines. Positive. His smile stretched wider. "I'm pregnant," he whispered. "We're going to have a baby." For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. Not because I didn't want children. I absolutely did. Someday. Just not like this. Not without planning. Not after how careful we'd both supposedly been. Every logical thought collided with every emotional one until my mind became completely still. Before I could even process it, Ryan laughed. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Now you're trapped with me forever." He chuckled as though he'd made the funniest joke in the world. But his eyes never smiled. They watched me, measured me, waiting, testing, almost like a scientist waiting to see whether an experiment had succeeded. A chill crept down my spine. Instead of reacting emotionally, I forced myself to stay calm. Years of learning to hide my feelings suddenly became my greatest advantage. I smiled. "Wow." He visibly relaxed. "Really? This is huge," I continued. "We should celebrate." His entire face lit up. "I knew you'd be happy." "I am surprised," I admitted. "But let's do this the right way." "What do you mean?" "I'll schedule an appointment with an OB/GYN tomorrow." The happiness vanished. Instantly. It was like watching someone switch off a light. His shoulders stiffened. "Oh, that's not necessary." "No? It's still really early. We should make sure everything's healthy. They won't even see me yet." "How far along are you?" He hesitated. "I think. Maybe 6 weeks." "Perfect. Then they'll confirm everything." His fingers tightened around the test. "I don't think we need to rush. I'd feel better hearing it from a doctor." He looked away. "It's my body, Emily." "I know. I'll go when I'm ready." His answer wasn't emotional. It was defensive. Calculated. Every sentence sounded prepared. Almost memorized. I'm only thinking about the baby, I said gently. His expression hardened. Why don't you trust me? That question caught me off guard. It's not about trust. It feels like it. I simply think something this important deserves professional care. He crossed his arms. You're being controlling. The word echoed in my mind. Controlling. Because I wanted prenatal care, something didn't fit. I let the conversation die, but sleep never came. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard him laughing. Now you're trapped with me forever. People joke with their mouths. Their eyes usually tell the truth. His eyes had terrified me. The next 3 days became an investigation I never wanted to conduct. I watched, listened, remembered. Ryan wasn't behaving like someone excited or even worried about a pregnancy. He still poured himself wine every evening. When I casually mentioned alcohol during pregnancy, he shrugged. 1 glass won't matter. That answer only deepened my unease. The following day, I noticed the pregnancy test sitting untouched on the dresser. If I'd believed I were expecting my first child, I would probably have stared at that stick every 10 minutes. Ryan barely glanced at it. No research, no excitement, no prenatal vitamins, no doctor's appointment. Nothing. Almost. Like the pregnancy didn't exist outside our conversations. Sunday morning, he left for brunch with friends. The apartment suddenly became painfully quiet. I stood outside our bedroom for almost a full minute. I hated what I was about to do. I hated that suspicion had replaced trust. But if I ignored my instincts now, I might regret it for the rest of my life. Slowly, I opened his bedside drawer. I found the receipt within seconds. The receipt was folded twice and tucked beneath a stack of old charging cables, as though hiding it under ordinary clutter could somehow make it harmless. At the top was the name of a novelty website, prankpreg.com. Below that, in bold black letters, was the item description: realistic positive pregnancy test. 24美元, 99美分. The delivery address was Ryan's office. The order date was 5 days before his announcement. I sat on the edge of the bed, reading the same lines until the words blurred. That was when the final piece clicked into place. The test had never belonged to him. He had presented it as proof that I was pregnant, claiming he had secretly tested a sample from a cup I had left in the bathroom after feeling nauseated earlier that week. In the confusion of that night, he had repeatedly said, "We're pregnant," until the story became his emotionally, even though the supposed pregnancy was mine. It had sounded strange then. Now it sounded sinister. He had bought a fake test, hidden the purchase, and constructed an entire story around my body without my knowledge. Now you're trapped with me forever. It hadn't been a joke. It had been the purpose. I photographed the receipt from every possible angle. The website name, the shipping information, the order date, the product description. Then I returned it exactly where I had found it. When Ryan came home that afternoon, I was sitting on the couch with the television on. I couldn't have told you what was playing. "Hey," he said, dropping his keys into the bowl by the door. "Did you miss me?" "Always." The lie tasted bitter. He leaned down and kissed my forehead. I had to stop myself from recoiling. "I've been thinking," I said. His smile softened. "About what?" "The baby." He froze for less than a second. Then the smile returned. "What about it?" "I want to have a dinner next weekend. Your parents, my parents, maybe my sister. We can tell everyone together." Ryan's face cycled through several emotions so quickly that it was almost impressive. Surprise, fear, calculation, then forced excitement. "Isn't that a little early?" "It's family. People usually wait 12 weeks. They can keep a secret." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I don't know, Emily. I'm not ready for all that attention. That's okay. We don't have to decide tonight." His shoulders loosened. "But we do need to schedule a doctor's appointment." The tension returned immediately. "I already told you there's no reason to rush. I found a clinic with an opening on Tuesday." His eyes narrowed. "You made an appointment without asking me." "It's my body, Ryan." The words stopped him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I added, "And if you're telling me that I'm pregnant, I have every right to confirm it." "You're twisting this." "How?" You're making it sound like I did something wrong. I studied his face. He was angry now, but beneath the anger was panic. You said you used a sample I left in the bathroom. I did. And you're certain the test was positive? He hesitated. Yes. Then, the doctor will confirm it. Why can't you just trust me? Because trust isn't a substitute for medical care. He stood and began pacing. You always do this. Do what? Turn everything into an interrogation. I'm asking reasonable questions. No, you're trying to control the situation because you're scared of commitment. There it was again. Controlling. Commitment. Words designed to make me defend my character instead of examining his behavior. I let him speak until he ran out of accusations. Then I unlocked my phone. I do believe something I said quietly. He stopped pacing. I turned the screen toward him. The photograph of the receipt filled the display. Every trace of color disappeared from his face. For several seconds he stared without blinking. Where did you get that? Your drawer. You went through my things. Yes. His mouth opened, then closed. That's an invasion of privacy. You fabricated a pregnancy using my body. It isn't what it looks like. It's a receipt for a fake positive pregnancy test. You don't understand. Then explain it. His eyes began filling with tears. The transformation was immediate. The anger disappeared. His shoulders collapsed. His voice became soft and wounded. I just needed to know how you'd react. I stared at him. What? It was a test. Yes, Ryan. I know it was a test. A fake one. No. I mean, it was a test of our relationship. He stepped closer. I stepped back. You never talk about marriage, he continued. You never tell me when we're going to take the next step. I feel like I'm living in your apartment, fitting into your life, but you could decide you're done with me whenever you want. So, you invented a pregnancy. I panicked. You ordered the test 5 days in advance. I was scared. You had it delivered to your office so I wouldn't see it. I didn't know what else to do. You could have spoken to me. I tried. No, you hinted. You pressured. You stared at rings and made comments about other couples. That isn't a conversation. His tears spilled over. I love you. Love doesn't manufacture medical evidence. I just wanted to know you loved me too. I felt something inside me go quiet. Not break. Not explode. Just shut down. The part of me that had spent 11 months making excuses for him finally stopped working. You told me I was trapped, I said. It was a joke. Your eyes weren't joking. You're overreacting. No, I'm reacting to exactly what you did. He wiped his face with both hands. When you describe it like that, of course it sounds bad. There is no version where it sounds good. He looked at me with disbelief, as though I were failing a test he still believed he had the right to administer. Are you seriously going to throw away everything we have? You already did. His expression changed. The sadness hardened into something colder. What does that mean? It means you need to pack your belongings. He laughed once. It was short and humorless. You're kicking me out. Yes. I live here. You stay here. There's a difference. My clothes are here. My furniture is here. The furniture is mine. I get mail here. No, you don't. Your mail still goes to your parents' house. His jaw tightened. You can't do this. You're not on the lease. You don't contribute to rent. I'm giving you until Sunday evening. 3 days. 3 more than I feel like giving you. He stared at me as though he had never seen me clearly before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe I had spent so much time being patient that he had mistaken patience for weakness. This is insane, he whispered. You're ending an 11-month relationship over one mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is saying something cruel during an argument and regretting it afterward. You researched a product, paid for it, hid the delivery, rehearsed a lie, and used my body to create a crisis. I said I was sorry. No, you said you were scared. That's the same thing. It isn't. His tears had stopped, remarkably fast. He picked up his jacket from the chair and walked toward the bedroom. I'm not leaving. Yes, you are. We'll talk when you calm down. I am calm. That seemed to frighten him more than if I had screamed. He slept in the bedroom that night. I slept on my own couch. By Sunday, he still hadn't packed a single box. Instead, he behaved as though the breakup had never happened. He made dinner. He asked whether I wanted to finish the series we had been watching. At one point, he sat beside me and tried to rest his head on my shoulder. I stood up immediately. "Ryan, you need to leave," he said. "Can we not do this tonight? We're going to do this every night until you're gone." Monday morning, I called Rebecca Chen, an attorney I had known since college. After I explained everything, she was silent for a moment. "Please tell me, you documented the receipt." "I photographed it." "Message." "I have those too." "Good. Stop discussing anything important verbally unless you're recording legally or there's a witness. Send him written notice today." That afternoon, I handed Ryan a dated notice requiring him to leave. He read it slowly. Then he signed the acknowledgement with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You really think a piece of paper protects you? It documents the truth." He folded the notice and handed it back. "You're going to regret humiliating me." The next afternoon, his mother called. "What is wrong with you?" she shouted before I could finish saying hello. "My son hasn't eaten in 2 days. Your son fabricated a pregnancy. He made a mistake because he loves you. He purchased a fake test and used it to manipulate me. You women are all the same. You demand vulnerability from men and then punish them when they show fear. Fear would have been him telling me he felt insecure. He wanted commitment. He wanted control." She hung up. The following evening, Ryan's father appeared at my door. He was broad-shouldered, heavy-handed, and stood close enough that I could smell sawdust and aftershave on his jacket. "You're going to make things right with my son." "No, sir. He made one bad decision. It was premeditated deception. You're going to destroy his life over a prank. Your son tried to convince me I was pregnant." His father leaned closer. "You don't want to make an enemy of this family." I held his gaze. "Is that a threat?" He didn't answer. He simply stepped back and walked away. Thursday morning, Ryan finally began packing. As he carried a box toward the door, he stopped and looked at me. "You know," he said quietly, "I could tell everyone you were abusive." The room seemed to lose all its warmth. "What did you say?" His smile was faint. "I said people might believe you drove me to it." He walked out before I could respond. Saturday morning, a detective from the local police department called. "We received a report concerning emotional abuse and controlling behavior at your address." My hand tightened around the phone. The detective continued. "We'd like you to come to the station and answer a few questions." I called Rebecca before I even put the phone down. She answered on the second ring. "Don't say anything to the police without me there." "I haven't done anything." "I know. That doesn't mean you walk into a station alone." An hour later, Rebecca met me outside the precinct carrying a leather folder and the expression she wore whenever someone had underestimated her. Inside, the detective led us into a small interview room with gray walls, a metal table, and fluorescent lights that made everything feel colder than it was. He introduced himself as Detective Harris. "Miss Carter, Ryan Mitchell has alleged that you were emotionally abusive and controlling throughout your relationship." My stomach tightened. What exactly did he say I did? "He claims you monitored his movements, restricted his access to money, threatened him with homelessness, and repeatedly used the fact that the apartment was in your name to intimidate him." Rebecca placed one hand on the folder. "Did Mr. Mitchell mention why Miss Carter ended the relationship?" Detective Harris looked down at his notes. "He said there was an argument regarding commitment." I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because the lie was so carefully incomplete. I unlocked my phone and placed it on the table. "Would you like to see what the argument was actually about?" For the next 20 minutes, Rebecca and I walked him through everything. The receipt for the fake pregnancy test, the order date, the delivery address, messages Ryan had sent after being confronted. One of them read, "I only did it because I needed to know whether you would stay if things got serious." Another said, "You failed the test by caring more about proof than my feelings." We showed Detective Harris the written notice Ryan had signed confirming he had received several days to move out. We showed him the message from Ryan's mother accusing me of punishing her son for wanting commitment. We showed him my notes about his father's visit. the implied threat, the date, the time. Then I played the voicemail Ryan had left the previous night. His voice filled the small room. You think everyone is going to believe you because you have some receipt. People believe emotion, Emily. They believe whoever looks hurt. And I'm a lot better at looking hurt than you are. When the message ended, Detective Harris leaned back in his chair. His expression had changed. Why didn't you mention this voicemail when we called? I was trying not to sound defensive. Rebecca shook her head slightly. Being prepared isn't defensive. The detective reviewed the screenshots again. Finally, he exhaled. Between us, this looks less like abuse and more like someone trying to control the story before the truth reaches other people. So I'm not in trouble. At this point, I don't see anything actionable against you. Relief hit me so suddenly that I almost became dizzy. But Detective Harris didn't smile. I would still be careful. When people make accusations during a breakup and don't get the reaction they expect, sometimes they escalate. Rebecca closed the folder. We'll continue documenting everything. That would be wise. I left the station feeling as though I had aged 10 years in one morning. For the first time, I understood how easily a lie could become dangerous when delivered with enough confidence. Ryan had failed to trap me with a pregnancy. Now he was trying to trap me with a reputation. Over the next 2 weeks, the harassment didn't stop. It simply changed forms. His younger sister began texting me from unfamiliar numbers. Coward. Commitment phobic. Emotionally broken. One message said, "No wonder no man wants to build a family with you." Another read, "Ryan gave you the best years of his life, and you threw him away over one mistake. He was 27. We had dated for 11 months. Apparently those were now the best years of his life." I blocked every number. But before blocking them, I took screenshots. Date. Time. Number. Message. Everything went into a folder. Rebecca told me to label evidence. Ryan's mother left a 5-minute voicemail that shifted between sobbing and screaming. She accused me of destroying her son's future, humiliating him, and taking away his chance to become a husband and father. I listened once. Then I saved it. The mutual friends came next. One by one, people I thought knew me began asking cautious questions. Did you really kick Ryan out because he joked about pregnancy? Wasn't it just a relationship test? Couldn't you forgive him? His version had apparently transformed the fake test into a desperate romantic gesture. He wasn't manipulative. He was frightened. He wasn't deceptive. He was deeply in love. I sent each person the photograph of the receipt. The responses divided quickly. Some apologized immediately. I didn't know he bought an actual fake test. That's completely different from what he told us. I'm sorry, Emily. I should have asked you first. Others opened the message and never replied. Those silences told me more than arguments could have. The friend group split almost evenly. The people who cared about facts stepped away from Ryan. The people who cared more about maintaining their first impression stayed beside him. I stopped trying to convince anyone. Truth shouldn't require begging. Then 2 weeks after Ryan moved out, a letter arrived from an attorney. It demanded $8 0 inches relocation expenses. According to the letter, I had forced Ryan from his established residence without adequate notice, caused significant emotional distress, and placed him under severe financial hardship. I read it twice before sending a photograph to Rebecca. She called me immediately. Her laughter was the first sound I heard. "Is this real?" It came on letterhead. "Oh, it's real. It's just ridiculous. What happens now?" We respond. With what? With everything. Rebecca's letter was 8 pages long. She included the signed notice, the fake test receipt. The messages where Ryan admitted the pregnancy claim had been a relationship test, the police report outcome, the voicemail, the messages from his sister, the record of his father's visit. At the end, she warned that any further harassment or false claims could result in legal action for defamation and emotional damages. A week later, Ryan's attorney called Rebecca. Then Rebecca called me. They're withdrawing the demand. That's it. That's it. Did his lawyer say why? She said off the record that Ryan had not provided the full story. I sat in silence for a moment. It wasn't a dramatic victory. There was no courtroom, No confession, just another lie collapsing. When someone finally examined it, I thought that would be the end. I was wrong. 3 evenings later, I returned home from work and drove into the apartment garage. Ryan was sitting on the hood of his car. He had been waiting there long enough for an empty coffee cup and 2 crushed water bottles to be lined beside him. I stopped several feet away. "You're not supposed to be here. We need to talk." "No, we don't. I deserve closure." "You had closure when I showed you the receipt." His face tightened. "I made one mistake." "No, you made a plan. I was scared of losing you, so you tried to manufacture a reason I couldn't leave. I loved you." "That wasn't love." His eyes filled with tears. "You don't get to decide what I felt. I get to decide what I accept." He slid off the hood and stepped closer. "My life is falling apart. You're living with your parents. I lost friends because you lied to them. I had to quit my job. I didn't tell anyone at your workplace. People found out. That isn't my fault." His grief shifted into anger so quickly that it confirmed everything I had learned. "You're cold. I'm careful now. You never loved me. I loved who I thought you were." He flinched. For 1 second, the anger disappeared, and I saw something almost genuine in his face. Regret. Not for what he had done, for the fact that it had failed. I walked toward the building entrance. Behind me, he shouted, "You'll never find anyone who loves you the way I do." I stopped with my hand on the door. A year earlier, those words might have sounded romantic. That night, under the garage lights, they sounded like a threat. The building manager had watched the entire confrontation through the security cameras. The next morning, he saved the footage and added it to the growing file. Rebecca reviewed it and called me before lunch. "We have enough to send a formal cease and desist. And if he ignores it, then we discuss a protective order." I looked around my apartment. His absence should have made it feel safe. Instead, every shadow seemed to carry the possibility that he would return. "Send it," I said. For the first time since finding the receipt, I wasn't waiting to see what Ryan would do next. I was preparing to make sure he couldn't do it again. The cease and desist letter reached Ryan 3 days later. Rebecca sent it by certified mail and email, making sure there could be no argument that he had never received it. The language was formal, restrained, and unmistakable. He was to stop contacting me directly or indirectly. He was not to appear at my apartment, workplace, or any location he knew I regularly visited. He was not to encourage friends or relatives to contact me on his behalf. Any further harassment, false allegations, or attempts at intimidation would be documented and used to support a protective order and possible civil action. For 2 weeks there was silence. No unknown numbers. No screaming voicemails. No carefully worded messages from mutual friends asking whether I might reconsider. Every evening when I returned home, I still checked the garage before getting out of my car. Every sound in the hallway made me pause. But Ryan stayed away. His family stopped calling. The lawyer letters stopped arriving. Slowly, the apartment began to feel like mine again. I moved the couch to the opposite wall because I was tired of remembering the nights I had slept there while he occupied my bedroom, as though I were the intruder. I replaced the coffee table he had chosen. I packed the last few items he had abandoned into a box and asked Rebecca how long I was legally required to keep them. When the deadline passed, I donated everything. His jacket, 2 pairs of shoes, a stack of books he had never finished. Even the ceramic mug he always used in the mornings. The apartment looked nearly the same afterward, but it felt different. Cleaner, quieter, honest. I started therapy 3 weeks after the police interview. At first, I felt embarrassed, admitting that I needed help. Nothing physical had happened. I hadn't been injured. There were no bruises, no hospital visits, no dramatic scene where someone rescued me. But my therapist, Dr. Lewis, corrected me during our second session. Manipulation doesn't need to leave a visible injury to change the way you move through the world. That sentence stayed with me. I had begun doubting my own instincts. Whenever someone was kind, I wondered what they wanted. Whenever someone became emotional, I searched for the hidden strategy. Even harmless jokes about marriage or children made my chest tighten. Dr. Lewis told me, recovery wasn't about returning to the person I had been before Ryan. It was about becoming someone who trusted herself more than she feared being wrong. So I practiced. I went to dinner alone. I invited my sister over without worrying that Ryan might suddenly appear. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. Some nights were easier than others. Then, about a month after the garage confrontation, I heard that the story had begun spreading through Ryan's social circle. I didn't start it. I never posted the receipt online. I never wrote a public account of what happened. Whenever people asked me directly, I told the truth and showed evidence when necessary. That was all. Apparently, one of our mutual friends mentioned the fake pregnancy test in a group chat that included several people from Ryan's former workplace. From there, the story traveled, not in one explosive wave, in whispers. Side conversation. Question. People began comparing Ryan's version with the messages he had sent them. The contradictions became obvious. He had told some people it was a harmless joke. He told others it was an emotional breakdown. A few believed he had genuinely thought I might be pregnant. The more explanations he offered, the less believable he became. His reputation didn't collapse overnight. Real life rarely works that neatly. He wasn't publicly destroyed. He wasn't fired in some dramatic meeting. But people looked at him differently. Coworkers became cautious around him. Friends stopped inviting him places. When he told stories about our breakup, people no longer accepted them without questions. Ryan eventually quit his job. I heard he said the environment had become hostile. Maybe it had, or maybe being around people who knew what he had done became unbearable. One evening, his mother called me from a number I hadn't blocked. I almost let it ring out. Then I answered. "I hope you're happy," she said. Her voice sounded exhausted rather than furious. "I'm doing better." "You've ruined him." "I didn't ruin Ryan. He can't show his face anywhere. His friends abandoned him. He had to leave his job. I didn't contact his coworkers." "You told people." "I told people who asked me why your son accused me of abuse. You could have kept it private." "I tried." "No, you wanted revenge." I closed my eyes. A month earlier, the accusation would have sent me into a long explanation. That night, I felt strangely calm. "Your son fabricated a pregnancy. Then he lied to the police. His family harassed me. His lawyer demanded money. He waited for me in my parking garage. I didn't create those events." He was desperate. Desperation explains behavior. It doesn't excuse it. You have no compassion. I had compassion for 11 months. What I needed afterward was boundaries. She began crying. "You took the best years of his life. We dated for less than a year. You know what I mean." "No," I said quietly. "I don't think I ever did." She hung up without another word. That was the last time anyone in Ryan's family contacted me. A week later, I ran into our mutual friend Daniel at a coffee shop. He had stayed mostly neutral throughout everything. He hadn't defended Ryan, but he also hadn't disappeared from my life. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "Better. You look better." "I sleep now." He smiled faintly. "That helps." We stood near the pickup counter while the barista prepared our drinks. Then Daniel lowered his voice. "Ryan isn't doing well." I looked down at the lid of my coffee. "Do I want to know?" "Probably not. But I thought you might hear eventually." I waited. "He's living with his parents. Most of the group doesn't speak to him anymore. He's working at a retail store across town." "Okay." "He keeps saying you turned everyone against him." "I didn't." "I know." Part of me felt sad. Not guilty. Sad. I remembered the Ryan who made pancakes on Sunday mornings. The Ryan who stayed awake with me when my sister had surgery. The man I once believed I understood. Those memories were real. But so was the receipt. So was the police report. So was the threat in the garage. People can be kind in some moments and dangerous in others. One truth doesn't erase the other. "I don't wish him harm," I said. "But I'm not responsible for protecting him from the consequences of what he did." Daniel nodded. "That sounds fair." When I got home, I opened the folder Rebecca had told me to preserve. It was labeled insurance. Inside were copies of everything. The fake pregnancy receipt, the screenshots, the voicemails, the notice Ryan had signed, the police paperwork, the attorney letters. The garage footage. Rebecca told me to keep the file for at least 7 years. I hoped I would never need to open it again. Before closing the folder, I looked one final time at the photograph of the receipt. $24.99. That was the price Ryan paid for a fake pregnancy test. But the real cost was everything that came after. Our relationship, our trust, his friendships, my sense of safety, the future we might have built. That was the saddest part. If he had sat across from me and said, "I'm afraid you don't see a future with me," I would have listened. If he had admitted that living in my apartment made him feel insecure, we could have talked about it. If he had asked whether marriage was possible someday, I would have told him the truth. Yes, I had imagined it. Not immediately, but eventually, he might have become my husband. We might have had children. A real family. A real future. But Ryan didn't choose honesty. He chose a test he believed I couldn't pass. He created a crisis to force reassurance. And when the crisis failed, he created another one. Then another. The pregnancy. The accusation. The legal demand. The confrontation. Every step was designed to make me surrender control of my own life. For months, I thought surviving meant proving that I wasn't the villain. Eventually, I understood that I didn't need everyone to believe me. I only needed the truth, the evidence, and enough courage to walk away. Ryan tried to trap me with a lie. Instead, he trapped himself with the truth. And I learned that sometimes victory isn't loud. Sometimes there is no courtroom confession, no public apology, and no perfect ending. Sometimes victory is simply waking up in your own apartment, hearing nothing but silence, and realizing you are finally safe.